first session in the summer workshop series. Really, this whole idea was kind of conceptualized as just a way to keep the momentum going throughout the summer and to keep everybody engaged, to continue to build that sense of community around our PhD in literacy program, and just to foster that really nice collaborative spirit that we all, really thrived with throughout the year. So I'll go ahead and turn the table over to Sarah. I know that she has some amazing information to share with us. And this portion of the meeting will be approximately 45 minutes, and then we'll be moving into the literature review overview portion. So Sarah, if you want to go ahead and hop right in, we're so thrilled to have you.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you all again for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. I'm one of those weirdos, I think, who actually likes formatting papers, and I like APA. And I know that I stand alone sometimes in that, because it can feel like a lot. And so I wanted to share some things that helped me kind of understand, especially with APA 7 still being relatively new. So the things that you might have felt comfortable with before might have changed. So I want to walk you through that a little bit. I did also help some of my peers in the program format their papers. So I don't know if that's just my librarian self. I'm just happy to help. So I also do have my email address at the end here. So if anybody wants to reach out to me one-on-one for more help later, please feel free to do that. I'm always happy to help. So, because I know there's a lot to cover, but I didn't want you to feel overwhelmed in just 45 minutes. So I tried to stick to just the things that helped me the most when I was formatting and writing my paper. So things that I think might help you as well. So let me pull up my slides real quick. Let's see. Give me just a second. I'm gonna share my screen. All right. Just as a note, I started the program in summer of 2018, and I just finished about 6 weeks ago. So if you're in the middle of it and it feels like it's never going to end, I promise you it does. You will finish. It will end. It does get better if you need that. All right. There we go. Can everybody see that all right? Can you see able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, so let's get right into it. So in the very beginning, I will recommend, if you don't already own a physical copy of APA 7, I do recommend getting one. That's one that I would recommend actually having your own copy of. I found it really helpful. There are tons of great online resources, especially the OWL at Purdue. If you're familiar with that, I was on the OWL at Purdue all the time. But it is nice to be able to pull directly to the page to reference a specific example of how to handle something. You can also see the introduction online for free at this link. I can also share these slides with you to have as well. So you can have that link. And the introduction does a pretty good job of going over what changes happened between 6 and 7 to kind of help focus your eye on, that new information you should know. We're going to talk a little bit about using inclusive and bias-free language in the text, also references and in-text citations, which is, I know, where things can get really hairy, some paper formatting, and then also using a reference manager to make your life 1,000% easier. So first, APA really highlighted going into 7 that they wanted to have this emphasis on, really from a style perspective, using inclusive and bias-free language. So some of these are recommendations that either didn't exist in previous editions of APA, or they've been updated because maybe some of the information was a little outdated or incomplete. So I want to make sure I drew your attention to this. One is the use of the singular they. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the debates going around about that. APA makes it really clear. Feel free to use the singular they as a pronoun to refer to a single person, or if a person's gender is unknown or irrelevant. For example, I actually use the singular they a lot in talking about my case study participants for an extra layer of anonymity, because in a lot of cases, their responses were not gender specific. And so instead of either giving more identifying information than necessary, or using that really clunky, like he or she every single time, you can just stick with they, and that works totally fine. It also does say that if a person has specified their gender identity to you or their pronouns, identify them the way that they have identified themselves to you. Also, there's a new recommendation about disabilities. And I say this because this may come up depending on the work that you are doing with your particular group of students or your particular research. It was previously recommended to use only person first language all the time. For example, person with disabilities, person with, et cetera. But we've been learning a lot recently and finding that there are certain groups who prefer identity first language, such as autistic people. And so just being aware of the nuances of that, depending on the group you're referring to and the context, and also just knowing the preferences and the norms of the group that you are referencing. And then finally, a recommendation about Latina, Latino, Latinx, basically saying that there are multiple ways that you can, multiple terms you can use to describe Latina and Latino people of, either gender, both genders, along the gender spectrum, to be, fully inclusive of everyone in that community. So just want to draw your attention to that as well. These are all ones that I thought would definitely come up potentially in a lot of your work. All right, and then we've got references and in-text citations. So like the nuts and bolts. It may look like there's a lot here, so I'm going to try to break it down so it's not too much. And a lot of this may be things that you're already doing, or when you actually look at it, not a big deal, not a huge change. For example, we no longer have to say the city and state that every single work was published in. I think for a long time, people thought maybe this is like excessive information that we don't need to include. So that's one less thing you have to include on your reference list. Another pretty big change when it comes to in-text citations was, we used to, if a work had more than 3 authors, the very first time you would cite them, you would list every single author's name. And then in subsequent citations, you would just say the first author et al. And from now on, you're using et al. For all in-text citations for multiple authors, including the first instance of a citation. So you're not having to go through and list every name. Some people are not big fans of that change. Some people have chosen deliberately to keep listing all authors on the first instance, especially because a lot of times your secondary and tertiary authors are not as established in their field, and you want to give them that recognition. But if you would like, 7 recommends just the first author, makes it a little simpler in the paper itself. However, in the on the references list, I think at least it used to cut you off at maybe 7 authors that you would list, and you would just say, you would put ellipses and you'd cut out all those authors. Now you can include in the reference list last names for up to 20 authors. In our field, I don't think we come across that a lot as in some of the sciences, but if you ever were to encounter a paper that had tons and tons of authors, that's where you would list all of their names would be on the reference list. Again, this is a minor change. When you were grabbing things from a website, you used to say retrieved from or accessed from. Again, a bit of unnecessary information you don't need anymore. You can just put the URL as is, because it's kind of self-explanatory. That's where you got it from. And then finally, move this over here so I can see it a little bit better. When you're referencing an online work, like a journal that you found online, the how it's listed in the reference list looks a lot more like it would in the published work. So you don't necessarily need to include the URL as long as you have all the information you would have normally included. So author, publication, author year publication, etc. And again, that might be a little nitpicky. So that's one that it's good to have the actual physical copy on hand, just as a reminder to check that one. If I am talking too fast, please let me know. All right. And then some general formatting notes. Again, this does seem really nitpicky, but it helps, especially when you're at the very end and you've got this manuscript that's all ready to go and you're really running the fine-tooth comb over it, and the types of things that the library will be looking for when you submit the manuscript to them. So Before, we would always use numerals for numbers that were higher than 10, except for in the abstract when they would get spelled out. And again, I think a lot of what APA 7 is trying to do is really streamline things and make things more unified across parts of the work. So now you'll do the same thing in the abstract. If you have a number higher than 10, you'll use numerals. This second one is kind of funny because this is where people also get into heavy debates about 1 or 2 spaces at the end of a sentence, or if there's any Oxford comma fans in the room. But now they're officially saying just 1 space at the end of a sentence, which I think most people have probably already been doing for quite some time. Let's see, this one about abbreviations in headings. They used to require you to spell out any abbreviation in any heading. And again, in trying to simplify things and make it just a little easier to read in the paper. If you've already defined an abbreviation earlier in the paper, feel free to use that abbreviation. Like if it comes up in a heading, you can still abbreviate it. Or if it's such a common abbreviation that it's in the dictionary, like ASAP, for example, you can include that. Oops. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just seeing some of the chats. So I am seeing to slow down a little bit. So let me try to do that. Sorry, I had my presentation on the whole screen, so I missed some of those chats. Before, I think in APA 6, there was a recommendation to keep your title lengths, I think it was under 12 words. It was really short, which for a dissertation especially can be very difficult. I think every dissertation I've seen recently has had a title and subtitle, so there's a lot to pack in there. So you're no longer limited necessarily in the number of words that you use, but they do recommend that you try to be as concise as possible. And that's something that you'll definitely work with your advisor with as well when you get to that point in finding a title that suits the paper and all that. So the next one, I realized when I looked at my slides, where did we go here? I lost the image here. So I'm gonna actually pull up the image I had for formatting your headings in your paper. Because again, this is an example of where I use the OWL or the online writing lab at Purdue for pretty much everything. So let me stop my screen share real quick and pull that up. Hold on just a second.
Everyone, don't forget to sign in on a link in the chat. Thank you.
I don't know what stage all of you are in your dissertation writing process, but if any of you have already at least defended your proposal or you have a working draft going, you know that there's a lot of information to organize, and it helps to really break that down, not just by chapter, but by headings and subheadings. And so this page right here, the OWL at Purdue, I at one point had, I'm going to share again. At one point I had this table right here screenshotted and was the background of my desktop because I referenced it every single day because I always wanted to make sure that the headings were right. I use this all the time. And so this is really walking you through essentially your level 1 heading would be, think of this as your chapter title. So this is level 1 is chapter. And as soon as you get down into, just as if you were outlining it, 2, 3, 4, 5, it walks you through. This is exactly what the heading itself, how it should be formatted, as well as where the text actually goes for that section. So as you can see for 2 and 3, you're actually going down onto a second line. For 4 and 5, it's just kind of built into the paragraph. Again, I use this all the time. And this is where I didn't want to get into this too much in this session because it would probably take 45 minutes alone just to talk about it. But let me pull up, to make your life a little bit easier and to use technology to your advantage, you can actually make Word work for you when getting your heading styles correct. I don't have it on here because I'm actually at work. So this is my work computer, but my personal computer at home, I have APA heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5. Those are all, I program them in as styles. So if I know, all right, we're getting into the next section, I can, for example, I can say, I know this is going to be heading 2, and then you can go back to your normal text formatting and include the text. So instead of going in by hand and bolding, italicizing, whatever you need to do, you can actually have that already as a style in Word. If anybody wants to see how to do that, like I said, feel free to reach out to me because I can show you one-on-one. This also saved my butt, because the other good thing about if you do it this way in Word, if you use the styles, it will also make the table of contents so much easier for you. Instead of having to hand make a table of contents and hand update it every time something changes.
Yes, Dr. Sarah, I would love that. I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot of people would like to know how we format that headings to be APA style.
Yeah, definitely. And what I would even be happy to do, if you want me to come back again, I can do that as a full session if a lot of people are interested. And I can definitely show you that. That would, because like I said, I didn't want to rush it and freak you out here, but if we were to dedicate a whole half hour, 45 minutes to it, I could definitely show you how to do that.
So everyone, I see in the chat, you're saying yes. If you could, when you fill out the form, the Google Doc, there's a comment section. Put if you're interested in Dr. Sarah to teach us that in a different session. And hopefully she can make that happen for us, okay?
Yeah, definitely. I see some requests to share my email address. I'm going to put it in the chat. It will also be at the end of my slides. I also saw some requests to share my slides. We can do that. Either Dr. Joe can send it out or I can send it out, whatever you prefer. I'm using my Gmail account because I don't know how long after finishing I will still have access to my St. John's account. So just to be safe, feel free to email me directly at sarahgarifo@gmail.com.
So, well, if you're the wanting head, it doesn't give you the dissertation for doing my by hand. So I would really want, every time I change something, I have to go back to the table, the numbers and all that. I use give me a shells, but and it just give us the old one, like short title of the paper. I don't dissertation.
I was able to hear some of what you were saying, Dom, but I think there might be some audio issues on your end, so I didn't catch all of it. I know you were talking a little bit about, were you talking about the header of the paper itself?
Like if you just the document, it just give you the normal. How do you have the dissertation format of content?
Yeah, I'm having
Don, it's hard to hear you. Can you type in your comment in the chat?
Yeah, that might, because Dom, you almost sound like robotic, and so it's hard to understand. But I think I may, because that's the other thing. I did see a question in the chat about whether APA headings are already in Word, and they're not. You'd have to make them yourself. And that's why, like I said, I'd be happy to do a session to actually show you how I did that, because they don't already exist in Word, unfortunately.
That was it. Because it's not there. That's fine.
Oh, was that the question? Yeah. So what I can kind of give you just a rough idea. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Because yeah, under styles here, we would go to create a style. So yeah, it does get a little, actually it wouldn't be here. It looks a little different. Again, I'll pull it up on my computer because I know the layout of my computer a little bit better. But yeah, you would go in and you would say, for example, you could call it APA heading 1, and you would say, based on let's see, based on this table here from APA, you'd say, okay, I know that APA heading 1, the text needs to be centered, bold, and in title case. And all of those things we can do in Word. We can tell it to do that. So then every time you hit APA 1, APA heading 1, you'd be all set. Yeah, so happy to show you that. And I would also include in that session, because another thing that causes a lot of anguish, I think, for people who are formatting their paper, is getting the page numbers right and consistent, and to not break when you do something. So I can show you that as well. Yeah, absolutely. Get down into like the mechanics of how we make it work with the technology. Let's see, what did I have after this? Okay, so we talked a little bit about the headings, and yeah, using, we'll talk about using Word to make it work for you. The other way I like to use technology to work for me a lot is in using a reference manager. I'm going to put this in the chat. The reference manager that I use is called, where's my chat? Here we go. Yeah, Ken does mention in the chat that there is an option when you open a new document in Word to do an APA style paper. I personally prefer to strong arm Word into doing things the way I want to do them, because sometimes it has ideas of its own. So this right here is Zotero. That's the name of the reference manager that I use. And so the way this works, again, if I were on my home computer, you would see I have probably thousands of references stored in Zotero. This is just the work one. So what it is it's free open source software that you can download. And also there's an extension that you can add to Chrome or whatever browser that you're using. And so every time you find a source that you want to use for your paper, or wherever you have them stored, let's see, I can open up this one, for example. So this is one of the sources that I used quite a bit in my dissertation. And because I have Zotero downloaded on my computer and I have the extension on Chrome, I can say save to Zotero. And what that's going to do is, as you can see, it saves the link. And in this case, it didn't find a lot of metadata to pull out, but it's really good for scholarly articles. I did not put in any of this information. This is again, an article I used a lot from Ladson Billings. Zotero pulled out all this metadata from the file itself, filled in the abstract, the pub, the dates, all of this was already in there, which one makes it really easy for me to search. If I know, hey, I read this thing and I don't remember what the article is called, I can search that in Zotero. But also it makes the citations for me. It makes the text citations and it makes the reference list. Yeah, and that's what I've heard from a lot of people, is that they've downloaded Zotero and then looked at it and said, I had no idea how to use it or what to do with it. So that is another one that I'd be happy to show you how to do, again, in a whole session. And again, I would do it on my personal computer so you could see everything that I have saved. And RefWorks and other reference managers are pretty similar. It's a similar idea where you can save all of your sources in one place. It'll pull out this metadata. And so then when I would go into Word, that's why I think like Word and Zotero might be a good shared workshop. I can go into Word and say, okay, this is, I'm citing Ladson Billings. It'll build the in-text citation exactly to APA specifications. So I don't have to look it up. I don't have to think about it. And then when it'll also build me a reference list that is exactly to APA specifications. It probably couldn't tell you the hundreds of hours it saved me by doing it that way. And that way, for example, if you find that you made a mistake, even in just like the spelling of it somewhere, every time you would update it, it's going to update that everywhere throughout the paper. So I'd be happy to show you that. Like I said, without having my own computer, I can't show you it quite as much in action, but definitely a lifesaver. And like I said, even just from the sense of it stores all your sources in one place. And then you can also add tags, you can add keyword tags. So it's easy to search for what you're looking for. So yeah, I would say Zotero did 80%, 90% of the heavy lifting in getting my references and citations formatted. So I know that was actually, because I talk fast, I ended up going a little faster than I expected. That's everything that I had prepared, again, knowing that I wasn't going to be able to go in depth on either of those things. But does anybody have any questions about what I mentioned so far?
Sarah, I have a request.
Yes.
The website that you went to for Purdue OWL to show the reference page, is it possible you can do a cut and paste of the URL and put that in the chat?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So first I will say, because I also have it, oh yeah, and here's also, I'll put a bunch of links in the chat for you. So
Thank you.
yeah.
Sarah, can you please add the links in the presentation? I mean, to assist us to use it as references.
Yes, I will definitely put those in too. So let's see, first we've got.
So I'm wondering, can you guys hear me? I seem to have lost my audio.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, okay, perfect. I think Sarah was saying that she is pretty much, has given us all of the wonderful information that she pre-planned for today. And I think that one of the really exciting things about this is that not only did we get to go over some of those different changes from 6 to 7, but that we were also introduced to these other potentials for more elaborated sessions where we can learn more about Zotero or learn more about how to do the headings in Word. I think that would just be amazing, and we'll try to see if we can potentially make that happen.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. That was wonderful. Do we want to open up for any questions? Does anybody want to extend any questions or comments to Sarah?
I just want to say thank you, Sarah. To be honest, when I saw the title of the workshop, I said, I don't really need it because I go to OWL Purdue for everything. Even though I have the manual, I don't use it. But I actually learned a load of things that I didn't know existed. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad I was able to give you something new. So yeah, I dropped a bunch of links in the chat. There's, again, the main site for OWL at Purdue. And also they have, of course, updated all of their the pages to reflect the APA 7 changes. So you're going to get the most up-to-date tips there, as well as the headings and seriation page that I said I went to a million times a day. You've got the link or the address to download Zotero, and then a good quick start guide if you've never used it before. And that could help in the meantime. If you were ready to get started and take a look, you can use that quick start guide, because I'll tell you, I self-taught myself Zotero. I don't even know how I came across it. So it is possible to teach it to yourself. I'm happy to teach everybody. Hey, Dr. Joe. But yeah, it's once you start using it and kind of know your way around it and what it's doing and how it works, again, super helpful tool. So yeah, I think that's all. I'm going to put, again, I'll put my email address again.
Well, you was wonderful, Sarah, and very informative. I too thought, okay, maybe I can learn a little bit, but you taught me a lot. And I look forward, and I really, really hope we can do that follow-up, because I never knew about the headings, APA headings in Word, creating that. And I'm definitely going to do that OWL Purdue, to become a fanatic, because I have a long way to go with that. So. And just the fact that you're willing to help us, we appreciate it.
Yes, of course. Like I said, happy to come back for any sessions, happy to answer questions one-on-one. Like it was just good to see. It was good to see all of you, and be able to help how I can, spread the wealth.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for being so generous. I came across something called RefnWrite. Are you familiar with that product?
I'm not.
Okay, I was wondering if anybody else has. It sounds sort of similar to Zotero, where you can put your citations in. And also, it supposedly does helps you to paraphrase some of the information you might be quote or using from an article or
Yeah.
a journal article.
Yeah, I just happened to Google it myself because I was curious, and it does look like you said, it is part citation manager. That is helpful to have some like paraphrasing tools too. And there is a section in APA 7 where they talk about, for as much as they talk about the mechanics and the nitty gritty, they do give some tips for paraphrasing too, especially because I would say that was one of the things I had the hardest time adjusting to in APA in general. I previously did MLA for all of my grad school work, which is a little more quote heavy. So I constantly had to be reminded when citing sources in APA, stop quoting, and paraphrase like 100% of the time. So yeah, if that's something that tool does, I would definitely recommend that, because that's a skill that takes some practice for sure.
Well, that's helpful just to know that APA, I guess I'm learning the more we spend with the APA manual, the more friendly we get with it, we get to know it better. So I'm glad to know that there's that section in there, because I didn't realize that as well. So
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm going to put, this is ref and I'm going to do everyone. This is ref and
Hello?
write. That's what Ken just mentioned. One thing I'm not sure of is if ref and write is free. That's one thing I loved about Zotero, is that it's free. Yeah, it looks like for ref and write, you can get a free trial, but then after that, you probably have to subscribe. So if you, be aware. But it does look like it.
Hello. Ivy, we hear you.
Hi, we can hear you.
Hello, I'm fine. How are you? Hello.
We can hear you.
Hi, we can hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, I just a quick one. Like I told you, I'm on the road, so I wasn't able to watch anything. But I wanted to, for those who will be purchasing the hard copy manual, if you go to Amazon, there's the spiral one. The pages are glazed. It's nicely spiral. It's easy to access. It's also indexed. And so it's very easy to navigate when you want certain sections. And then you'll not have Adobe book like, the other textbooks. I found it very good when I purchased, and it's still as good as new. And I've had it for the last 2 years. So I just wanted to point people towards that one.
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely recommend, again, if you don't have a copy yourself, it's something that's worth having. Like she mentioned, it does hold up well, and the indexing does make it really easy to find what you're looking for. Like I said, that was one that was good to have constantly on my desk while I was working. So yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, so if you are interested in something like Ref and Write, can't hurt to try that free trial. And if that's something that really works well for you, and it looks like it is compatible with a lot of different programs and apps, that might be something worth investing in, if you decide that. So thank you for the recommendation.
And just real quick, in response to what Envy was just talking about, the spiral bound APA book, that's the one that I have, and it just so happens I have it right here. So it is literally like the best thing, because you can do this and you can maneuver much easier than the old manual. So if you have a choice and prices are comparable,
Yeah, and those tabs, like I said, those tabs are so well labeled. It was really easy to go, like, this is the exact section I need. Like, it was really easy to drill down.
I have a question. I have right now maybe a book, the 6th edition. The sixth, is it work, or I have to buy the new one?
You would definitely want to have, you may not want to purchase the 7 for yourself, but for when you're actually formatting, you're going to want to make sure you're following 7, because 6 is outdated, so you won't want to follow that anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Dr. Joe, it sounds like I may be back to talk about reference managers and Word and formatting. So I'm happy to be back whenever you guys want me.
Great, thanks. I love reference managers.
Mhm.
Sorry I'm late. I had a meeting that ran very late with our dean, but what reference managers did you recommend so far?
So I recommend Zotero because that's the one that I used exclusively. Ken also mentioned Ref and Write. I can definitely speak to, to Zotero and how that one works.
Cool. Yeah, I used Mendeley,
Mhm.
and before that, EndNote.
Yeah.
But that one you had to pay for. So once I realized there's a free one out there, I started going the free route.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you can get the same tool for free, the same usability. Yeah. What did we say before earlier today? Free is my favorite price. So yes.
What was that? Mendeley, you said?
Yeah, Mendeley.
I'll drop a link for that too.
Yeah. In the end, they all kind of work roughly the same. They do the same things. There's a lot of it's user preference and accessibility that you'll find. But
yeah, and I would say for any reason why I might have chosen Zotero over the others, I think it was just what was recommended to me. So yeah, like you said, they all kind of do the same thing, but I can tell you about Zotero.
well, we always are welcoming more workshops and involvement from our students and alums. So thank you so much. I don't know. I feel like sometimes when when I talk and I tell people things and they run out and they go and get the thing that I say. So I'm really glad that they're hearing like other options out there that I have no idea. I've never used Zotero, so I'm gonna like be checking it out to see if I like it, even better. So
Oh, nice.
thank you for that.
I use Zotero. I have it, and I think it's wonderful because it helps me. It creates your citations for you. It creates
Mhm.
everything, and I just copy them. If I have doubt, I just go to Zotero and pull up, and it keeps every article I ever had looked at that I found interesting. I
Yeah.
could always refer back, and it could click right on and open it up. Even the PDFs, it's pretty great.
Yeah, that's what I love about it too, is it actually is keeping the original article or source in there as much as possible. Like I said, I do wish I was showing this to you on my personal computer so you could see just how much I have saved. I think if I ever lost, that's a good reminder. Back up your info, back up your stuff in like 3 different places. Because right now, if I ever lost my Zotero, that'd be a lot that I was losing. So back up your stuff, please.
I actually have a question about that because I am very resistant to Microsoft Word because my school's a Google school, so I pretty much do everything in Google, and I like the safety of the cloud.
Mhm.
Do you use any kind of the cloud services within Microsoft? Because everything you were showing is so helpful with like the headings and the table of contents. I'm like, I really should switch myself over, but what is your kind of safety net there?
How I was backing up, I did not use the Google environment as much. I think because I would lose a lot of my formatting going between, because since Google doesn't format like 100% the way that Word does, and so I didn't want to duplicate the effort. So my backup was onto an external hard drive. But I would definitely be interested to see and help give some recommendations for how to make that going between Word and cloud. Making sure that works well for you. Because one time I lost something for school, and Dolores chastised me. She's like, why was it not in Google Docs?
I think I like too that it's available everywhere. So in my mind, like if I have a free second, I'll be able to like pull something up. But I do feel that I've noticed the formatting issues when I've tried to pull stuff from, because obviously I don't submit in Google Docs.
Mhm.
I noticed the issues pulling it over to Microsoft.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something I would definitely want to, and maybe in advance of like our next session that we do, I can look more into some tips for how to make sure you're keeping like the integrity of that, because that'll save you a lot of time. Because I do, like you said, I like that idea that with Google Docs you can get to it everywhere. There were times where I'm like, I didn't bring my computer, I can't work on it. So there's kind of like pros and cons to both ways. Yep.
So we are right at 7:15, and I think this is about the time that we were going to be transitioning into the session on literature review. But I have to say, Sarah, that was just amazing and so helpful. All of us learned not only so many, new tips, but just speaking for myself, I have these new avenues to pursue in terms of where to look for information and how to store my information. For something like Zotero, I had heard about it, but it seemed intimidating. So I think that knowing that we could have an additional session, you could really break that down for us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you all for having me. You guys are a great group.
Thank you.
Sarah.
And Dr. Rumenap, I'm not sure if you were going to be presenting the next part of the presentation, or if we have an additional presenter who we would like to welcome.
Sure. So this is the same link for the lit review.
I'm here.
Oh, so okay, I see Anne. Anne's here. So Anne is actually going to present next. I thank you both, Sarah. Thank you so much. I know I saw the end part of it, but I really appreciate you jumping in there. I like APA. I don't love APA, so it's really good when I find people that love APA. So I really appreciate your presentation, and I know that it's a good resource. It's also a really good resource just to know that we have colleagues around us that know this stuff, right? We're not on our own. That's kind of the big thing of why we're doing, these workshops and these sessions, is that you're not on your own. And I know sometimes it can feel that way in a doctoral program, especially one that's online. So thank you so much for stepping in. And thank you as well. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you now, so you can present about lit reviews. And of course, I'm here to back you up, but I saw your presentation already, and it's great and thorough. So I'm going to let you take it away.
If you want.
Oh no, you're great. So if you need me, I'm going to jump in, but I think you got this. So thank you so much, both of you. And again, before anything else, I just want to say all my thank yous. Thank you, Sheila and Jessica, for putting everything together, and I really appreciate it. So I'm gonna now let Anne go.
Well, like Sarah said, that she was kind of, she used the word a weirdo in liking APA. I'm in the same way. I like writing literature reviews. So, with any type of research, I think we all bring our different perceptions and backgrounds to how we go about doing that. And the literature review is no different. So I'm going to walk you through some of the best practices that I felt